Bond. James Bond.
What a famous line. This is a series of movies that has run for over 5 decades. One of the most successful franchises in the history of Hollywood and the production of movies that carried the same theme. In this video, we're going to talk about why that happened and what are the 3 major things you can learn from James Bond that are going to make your life more successful. So one of the things you might notice with a James Bond movie is that it always starts with some thrilling action. That's one of the things I loved about it. Most movies start slowly. You've got the commercials when you go to the theater. You've got then the previews of other movies, and then it starts slowly with the credits and the scene with the helicopter from far away, and slowly a car's driving along the highway. You're like wondering what's happening. But not James Bond. James Bond was awesome. It was immediately starting with helicopters coming in, a dire situation. You're totally engrossed into it. And this goes on for about 3, 4, or 5 minutes. And then boom, cut to the music. And you've got that scene where James Bond is like, it's just so freaking awesome. What a beautiful franchise they created. Something different that worked. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the 3 things that I believe that James Bond embodied, that you can embody, that you can build, and that you can learn are actually a skill and not a talent. And when you embody them, you're going to get out of sticky situations, you're going to figure things out, and you're going to end up getting the results that you want.
Now, if you ever notice, when a James Bond movie starts, it always starts with some action, and it's usually James in bed with a woman or something like that.
James Bond.
Wild.
Because he's just finished a mission and he is having his celebration, let's just say. And either she's a double agent, she's a Russian spy, or somebody is closing in on his respite and about to take advantage of him. However, have you noticed that principle number 1 is James Bond is always, with me, he is always paying attention. James Bond has like a spidey sense. He's listening, he's looking, he's alert. Maybe like me, he was the youngest of 7 kids, and if you didn't, you were going to get beaten up. So your spidey senses are on, your James Bond alertness is on. And he usually has something like a gadget or a gun or a knife or something he can rely on to get him out of a sticky situation. Now, how does that affect you in your life? Well, I've noticed is that successful people are paying attention to the small details. They're looking at body language, for instance. They're looking at inflection. They're looking at what's going on in the news that can affect them going forward. So principle number 1 is, what are you paying attention to? What details are available that maybe other people are seeing that you're not seeing? And I'll give you an example. If you look at what's going on in the pandemic today, there are companies that are benefiting from the pandemic. For instance, home-based companies. Anybody that sells anything to do with being around homes, like swimming pools, patio furniture, etc., has done incredibly well. Some of their stocks have shot through the roof. However, if you're paying attention to just surviving, if you're paying attention to the noise and to the pain that's out there, you're going to miss those opportunities. So principle number 1 is pay attention to the things you don't normally see and take advantage so you can get yourself out of sticky situations and move in to success. Have you ever noticed that there's this scene where James Bond gets fitted with more resources? And it happens when he meets with Q. And they go through, all the guns and the watches and the pens that explode and all that kind of cool stuff, which I love personally. It's one of my favorite scenes. But it's interesting to think that the principle that is principle number 2, which I call say yes and figure it out later, right? Say yes and figure it out later has to do with you being committed to an outcome. So for instance, let's say that you want to get in shape. A lot of times people will confuse the outcome by saying, well, I want to lose 10 pounds, when what they really want is to, feel good and to be healthy. So I would invite you to get really clear on what's the outcome. For James Bond, it's usually I want to get the bad guy and save the world, right? Now, along the way, he gets to play with some fun gadgets, go to some really exotic places. He bumps into usually several Bond girls and he has some fun with them. But his journey is all about getting the bad guy.
They told me you were assassinated in Hong Kong.
Yes, this is my second life.
His focus is all about getting the bad guy, and everything else is just a temporary obstacle. What is the outcome that you want? Is it to become financially free? Is it to get yourself in shape? Is it to be able to have better emotions and laugh more? So get really clear on what that is, and then everything else is a temporary obstacle. But when you're committed and you're creative, like James Bond, then you just overcome every single little obstacle. For instance, during COVID, they closed a lot of gyms. And if your goal was to lose 10 pounds or maybe more specifically be in shape, a lot of people then diverted to working out at home, and they realized that they could do that actually quite successfully, in many cases even better. Peloton took advantage of this, and tons of people got Pelotons and found out it was really great. They could do business meetings on a Peloton, and they realized that what was there and was available before was not being utilized, so they weren't maximizing their resources, or they were looking at it in a different way. So this principle to me is to say yes and figure it out later. Get really clear on what is the goal, the outcome that you want. Don't let anything stop you, and believe that you will find a way, because you are unstoppable. Boom! Just like James Bond. He will always find a way to win no matter what and defy the odds. And you can too.
Moneypenny, I'll be back after the mission. But make sure to take care of everything I've got. I've left it in the office. You know what I mean?
So all kidding aside, when you are committed and creative, even the smallest little thing that you can achieve becomes an obstacle of passion, of joy, of excitement. Have you ever been in the kitchen trying to open up a can and you can't find a can opener, but you found a way because you were either hungry or you had to make dinner for the kids or whatever it was? You poked a knife in there, you pried it open, you poured the sauce out, you carved it, you found a way because you were committed and creative. But your mind will play games with you. It'll try to deliver like, oh no, this obstacle's too big. You can't do this. You don't have time. You don't have the energy. Besides, it's going to be really difficult. And then if you're not paying attention, you give into that small resistance, don't you? But when your why is big enough, when the how is big enough, when the world is depending on you like James Bond, and all of a sudden you start scanning and looking around for ways to make it happen no matter what. What if you could amp up in your life these different ways in your life that you were committed? What if you were looking at life as a video game where you just got up to the next level and you were fighting your way through like a great James Bond video, and you had to kill enough people, you had to climb the mountains, get in through enough doors and escape hatches, but life and the obstacles were just that way. Instead of hoping and wishing that things were easier, the hero never gets a chance to be born if things aren't difficult. So my challenge to you is find ways to overcome the obstacles in your life, just like James Bond. Be committed, be creative, and find a way. And then when you get in there, it's Bond, James Bond.
All right, principle number 3 is take yourself lightly. James Bond is very good at being quite humorous and bantering even with his enemies when he's about to be chopped in two, etc.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
I think that the reason people take themselves so seriously and get so uptight is because they're so worried that they can't figure it out. Does that make sense? James Bond is like, yeah, you know what? You got that laser, but then I've got this watch that I can explode and cut you off. So go ahead, pretend you're in control.
And you've had your 6.
Right? So he's very cool and calm under duress. My challenge to you is, if you were to develop more faith, if you were to develop more belief that you could figure it out, that you will find a way, that you don't have to be so uptight and worried, as I like to say, is no pre-worrying before things happen, then would your emotional experience be a little bit more lighthearted? And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the whole franchise series with James Bond, is that it's tongue-in-cheek. And so even though there is so much at stake, I would say that number 3 is take yourself lightly. Take yourself lightly. Don't be so uptight. Things will, you'll figure things out, and make sure that you enjoy yourself along the route. Have a few laughs. Things are going to go wrong. Then let them go wrong. And when you put these 3 together, when you are paying attention, when you're figuring things out by being committed and creative, and when you're taking yourself lightly, I think your emotional experience as you jettison yourself towards success will be much more James Bondish, in fun and confident and relaxed and suave, than without those principles being present as a thought in your mind. So if you like this video, then hit the buzzer, subscribe, share it, like it, share it with some other people. As you inch toward your success with yourself, it all comes down to mindset. And mindset is about building these principles, practicing them till they become natural and normal for you, so that when the enemy is approaching, competition is happening, a pandemic comes in, you're pulling out your gadget, you're jumping on your little piece of equipment, you're doing what you need to do in order to confidently and calmly move toward the outcome or success that you want. So, as you practice these 3 principles and you enrich them in your life, I want to make sure that you have access to all the principles of success. In my book, Your Epic Life Blueprint, which I'm going to give you for free, you just have to cover the shipping, is chock full of the 10 biggest principles for me of success, with stories that go with it, with places where you can write some notes. So go ahead and order it for yourself now. Let's get it out to you and use it as a workbook so that you can start to embody and practice these principles and make it your new normal. And then you can march toward success just like James Bond. The results that you want, being charismatic, being playful, being calm and confident, and start to build the life on your terms that you want for you and your family.